Yeah.
What are
That's
we talking about today, Ken?
talking about brutal honesty. What do you think about that, Vanessa?
I think that's amazing.
Mhm.
I think that's probably the hardest thing to ever get out of anybody. You know what I'm saying? Or probably the hardest thing to be with somebody, you know?
To be with somebody. What do you mean?
Like, if you have to be brutally honest with somebody, that's a tough thing, tough position to be in. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not even sure what you're, you know what I'm saying? Whatever the comment is you're about to make. And the same thing goes for somebody trying to be brutally honest about themselves. That's a very, you know, that's like danger zone territory for somebody to be brutally honest with somebody else, you know?
Well, you got to start with yourself. Otherwise, how do you know like what you're even observing in someone else?
Yeah. Give me an example of being brutally honest with yourself.
Well,
Here's a simple one. Are
go
you
ahead.
overweight?
Am I
Are
what?
you what?
Are you overweight?
Me?
No,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Overweight.
I mean
Yes.
that's a simple, one that you can see, like
Yeah.
you can look at yourself and be like, "Oh no, I'm not overweight. I'm just like, I'm this, I'm that, but if you're not saying, "Yeah, you know what? I am overweight because I've been, doing a little bit of more Burger King than normally, Another one is like what, as a parent, like, do you know, hold on, give me 1 second. Let me give this towel to someone.
That's like a physically brutally honest thing.
Sorry, I had to change child hands. As a parent, like, like for instance, like, back in my young age, I used to like to go out and everything and get home late and everything. My kids don't do that because, where we live is not somewhere where it's not where we can, like, the culture is different than where I grew up. But I know that they will, they'll eventually, be a kid and do stupid stuff, right? But if I'm not brutally honest of where I have been when I was their age or as an adult or as their mom, I can't like help them learn a lesson. If I know that they're lying to me or that, they did break that or something, or I've been in that position, I cannot lie to myself that I haven't been in that position. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How old are your kids, Vanessa?
15, 13, and 5 months old.
So yeah, I think you understand. I thought your kids were real young. I was gonna be like,
no.
yeah, wait till they're teenagers.
They're not.
Yeah. Well, this one took me a while. I mean, I guess I'd even say that before I considered it, I thought I was honest, especially honest with other people. But it turns out that was not even close. You see, what I think like that we've been seeing on these on these discussions, or a point we've been making repeatedly, is that you can't see what you're looking with. In other words, if you're thinking with your own programming. And if you're thinking with your own programming, it's like you're looking at the world through your own lens. And so you can think about that also as a story that we tell ourselves. over and over and over again. For me, the flavors that I've shared with you about that story have had things like, I'm right, or, don't tell me what to do.
What the?
Somebody's ruffling. All right. So, I'd say that I couldn't see it. Or maybe even I didn't want to see it, but I think it's probably fair to say that people can't see the ways they kid themselves. In other words, they can't see the way that they, I would say, lie to themselves. Well, at least until someone points it out to them. At which point, if they continue to do it, it's only because they refuse to let go of it. Okay, but for me, old habits sometimes didn't die so quickly, and I had to take a look at places where I was telling myself a story. I've shared it with you. I've shared it, in terms of how I dealt with my house and how I dealt with my law firm, and it was a story of what I thought was going on. Was I honest with myself? No, I was not. Uh, the reason is because I didn't take the time to address or change the belief that was behind, or the very lens through which I was generating that story, that righteous, don't you, you can't tell me what to do, and how dare you get in the way of Ken Kaplan kind of story thing. Right. So that's where brutal honesty is first and foremost applied to oneself. Until I do that, how do I know what anybody else is even doing? How do I know it? Because it was for what I was able to see, or maybe best I allowed myself to see, was a reflection of that story. They don't respect me. If they only knew all the great things I was doing, things like that. The slide must be brutally honest about yourself in order to really see someone else. Yeah. How do you know what someone else is doing unless you know what you're doing? Or maybe another way to say that is, how do you know what they're trying to make real, what they're going after, if you don't take a look at that for yourself? There's an area in psychology called cognitive dissonance. And what it says is that people generally don't like to look at things that are outside of the way they're familiar to see, that the familiarity that they grew up seeing them. In fact, they will painstakingly fit things within that familiar box, even if that familiar box has no basis in reality. So brutal honesty is a tool that first and foremost gets applied to ourselves.
Yeah, but like, can we handle it?
Pardon?
That's the issue. Can we handle it?
Can you? I don't. I mean, the flip side is this: can you afford not to do that? I had a long conversation with George Camus today about his refusal to deal with real shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, just steadfast, absolute, refusal to deal with what's going on, even though that he's taken a pounding or a frontal assault on places where he's not being honest with himself.
Yeah, I think that's that hard area to get out of somebody, Like there's a part of George that is
Okay,
not being.
whoa. I don't want to get it out of anybody. If they can't get it out of themselves, they can go fuck themselves.
Just get it out, like, for
No.
somebody.
You need to stop and listen here, Ralph. You always go right by here. Listen, They have to do it themselves. If they're not going to be brutally honest with themselves, what damn good are they?
Enough, they can't see it.
I can't trust a damn thing they say. And if I've got to work on them to be brutally honest with themselves, get the fuck out of my house.
Yeah, I give I understand that a first look may actually be a first look for someone, but once you say it and to the person, do you got to say it again or a third time? I mean, if they if they can't pick it up and make the adjustment at that point, then
Going away. It's okay. I don't mind.
Well, all right. Can I say this? Before we said, well, give me an example of being brutally honest. And Vanessa said, look in the mirror. Are you overweight? All right. So
No. She asked you that. She didn't ask somebody else. No. She said, I have to look in the mirror and see if I'm overweight. Do I look in the mirror or am I overweight? If somebody look in the mirror and they weigh 300 pounds, they say, no, I'm svelte.
Yeah.
I'm not going to believe anything else they're going to say, Ralph. I'm sorry, but I don't trust that conversation. I don't care what else you do.
yeah. That was the conversation with George today, because he looks in the mirror and sees
He's a six-pack, huh?
sees spelt in everything he does. Everything. He cooks spelt. He walks spelt. He acts spelt. But it's not backed up by any substance.
Yeah.
I'm not saying George is a bad kid. He's not. He's a good kid. He works hard. He thinks about things, but he's got some crazy damned ideas about who he is, and he's not honest with himself about that. And that part alone keeps him from being able to understand anything at all. Because where does he start, Ralph? I mean, he's a good kid. Where does he start to decide what he's about or whose he's about or what's real in his life, even if he's pretending he's something that he's not?
I agree. There you go. I just like some of the thought is, again, my mind is wandering a little bit, thinking that, okay, when a fat guy looks at himself in the mirror and asks himself, am I fat? It's harder for him to say, yes, I am, or no, I'm not.
It's not.
No.
No.
Why would it? No.
No, it is not. No, it is not. No, it's the damn truth.
It is.
Okay, there's nothing hard about looking at the truth. Here come my friend, the mountain lion, and he comes over and says, "Hey, John, how you doing?" And I said, "I'm fine, man. How you doing?" And he says, "I'm hungry as hell, dude." Ralph's damn skinny. You weigh 300 pounds. Ralph weighs 95 pounds. So which one are you like I'm coming to visit on, John? I'm coming to see you. I can pretend myself and say, no, you got it backwards. But the mountain lion don't care.
I just in today's society, it's harder.
Society,
It's like being sensitive in today's society.
You go on ahead there, son. Make up your damn excuses for everybody. It'd be all right with me. I don't mind. Hell, kiss their ass while you at it too. I'll quit yelling.
Yeah. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think it's not a big deal. It's not. It's freeing. It is energetically easier. It's less of a hassle, and to deal with shit that's real than to deal with things that aren't.
And I agree. I just think some people have it easier to do it versus being brutally honest with themselves. It's easier to hide and live in fiction.
And they're how can okay. This is what I can't like. I just don't understand. How can you lie to yourself?
That's easy. How can you lie to yourself? You tell yourself things you want to hear. There you go.
You still know it's a fucking lie.
Yeah. Hey, you're saying, how do you lie to yourself? Whether it's true or not is something else.
So, okay. So you are in the mirror and you're like, hey, Ralph, you're like really skinny. And like, the mirror's like, well, Ralph, I see that you're like 300 pounds. And you're like, no, but I'm really skinny. Like,
Well, like what I'm really saying is like, if you're not fat, it's real easy to say, hey, you know what? I ain't fat. Look at me. I look good. It's harder for the fat guy to say he looks fat. It's easier for the skinny guy to say he's not fat.
Ralph,
And that's why.
Ralph.
Well, that's why, like, there was a famous, like, New Yorker cartoon.
Go ahead, Jenny.
So why do you make excuses for other people?
I'm just trying to see George's point of view
Slow
on it.
down, please.
No, you're not. You're defending yourself. It's okay. You don't want to be honest with yourself. Don't be honest with yourself, Ralph. I don't care. It's fine with me. Now I know what your limits are. We're done. Thank you.
That's fine. I mean, I don't know. I just, again.
Well, wait. Ralph, please. Just,
Mhm.
Seriously, okay, before you get defensive, like, can you actually answer the question, why do you make excuses for other people?
I don't know if I make excuses for everybody, George, in this situation.
Okay, then what is it if it's not an excuse for someone else?
What do you mean?
Well, you said, well, I don't know if I do that. I don't know if I do make excuses for George, for example. So if you're not making excuses for somebody else, then what is it exactly that you are doing?
I mean, if I'm seeing a point of view and I want to interject and give my opinion on it,
No.
that's how I'm taking this one. You know, it's not that I'm making an excuse for
This
George.
is not a point of view, though. This is actually a function of the self meta programmer. And if you can't do that, then you can't run your programming. Honest to God. It's not an opinion. It's a fact. It's something that you have to do.
That's what I'm learning. That's what I'm learning.
Ralph, wait. I don't care if you're offended. It's not going to change my mind about this. I've spent 40 freaking years figuring this one out. And I know how I know that I absolutely must be brutally honest with myself, or I don't understand what somebody else is talking about. Because I think I know.
Yep.
And that's my friend George. He thinks he knows. Now, you know, young people do that. That's why we have a phrase say that they're sophomoric. There's nothing particularly wrong with that other than it's a little goofy, but you know, what the hell? Everybody gets to be a little goofy every now and then. I don't mind George being as goofy as he wants to be. That's fine. What I do mind is when George tells me that he's not really being goofy, when I'm sitting there looking at him saying, George, okay, dude, then what is this? If it's not goofy, what are we going to call it? And then I go back, and tomorrow I'm having the same conversation with my friend George again. Now, there's no reason for me to be mad at him because of that. But George, you know, one time's enough. Twice is too much.
You know, Ralph, I used to do the same thing for people. Like, you know, if we can just coin the term what you're doing, make excuses, okay?
Sure,
But
go ahead.
you know, what I was really doing, even though I didn't think it was, I was trying to protect them from the brunt of a lesson. And I spent a lot of time stealing people's lessons like that because, I was being too hard on them. And you know, that comes from a long line or a long tree of people in my family doing the same thing. Like, for instance, my brother Jesse right now is currently in prison again for the second time for I don't know how long. But, you know, my family spends a lot of time sending him money and instead of allowing him to actually hit rock bottom and deal with what he has to deal with and become a man. I mean, that's part of the reason why, you know, I'm a mother right now is because I'm taking care of my nephew. But if the women in my family would have allowed him to actually feel what life was like instead of trying to protect him all the time, maybe he wouldn't be where he is right now.
Okay.
Are you with Ralph?
Yeah, I'm trying. I thought you were gonna circle back to another point. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where. Like, all right, I see where you're kind of getting at with that, and I could see like that's family that's connected close to you. But I'm just looking on as an outsider to George. I'm not trying to make an excuse for him.
No,
Okay.
you're missing it, dude. Honest to God, you're missing the point. You're really missing the point.
Yes.
I
George has to be brutally honest with George. If he can't be, he's got to go away. I can't have him in the tank office. Everybody in the world will program him. Everybody. He won't have his own. It took me 30 days to unload that from him when he got here.
there's got to be the way for him to open up to be brutally honest with him instead of you just yelling
There
at him all the
is.
time.
He can quit lying to his own damn self. He can say,
No,
"Oh,
but
I
again,
have to be brutally honest with me. That's how things really are." He instead of sitting there and saying, "Yes, cute's valuable." Well, George, then go sell it. Go down
I
here
just
in the corner and sell your cute. You can sell it down there. I'm agreeing with you.
You
Is
know,
that what you want?
again, when you're asking somebody to be brutally honest, I feel like they're in a vulnerable state.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, nah. Yeah, hold on, guys, gals, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, no, it's not. Yeah, I mean, he is in a vulnerable state. The vulnerable state he's in is missing this big issue that he brings to the way he sees things or what he'll allow himself to see. It's really, really dangerous. I mean, I can't emphasize it enough that if you go around pretending to be something that you're not going to get very far. And as far as I'm concerned, as his employer, if I point that out to him and he doesn't get that or he doesn't respond to that, what am I going to do from there? Look, okay, here. Ralph, I grew up, I probably wasn't much different than your family, it sounds like. The Kaplans are a nice family. If you want to know that, just ask the Kaplans and our first cousins, the Bleckers and the Griffeos. We're all, I mean, we grew up with, polite smiles and nods and winks, but never really saying anything to each other about the things that were on our mind and bothering us. Never. That was not a Kaplan first family thing. That stuff would never be said. Everybody would be all polite smiles, and if you ever heard it, you'd hear it through a back channel. Somebody would say that somebody else was pissed at you. That's how it comes about. That was part of the fabric of my growing up. That was part of the lens through which I saw the world. It just did not seem to me to be very nice. It didn't seem to me to actually talk to somebody about what was going on, what I was able to see for them. First thing, I had to see what was going on for me. But when I can see what's going on for a guy like George, I had to consider to myself, well, wait a second. I grew up, it's true, with a family that never says anything. And what we did is we all called that being nice. But is it really nice? Was I really being nice to people by ignoring what I saw? Ralph, I kid you not. I thought I was. I thought that was the way to get along with people. The first time I think that I really took a stand against that, or at least one that's memorable to me, was when after my dad died and I started to see what I never saw before in terms of in my brother's family, with all of the violence that was going on with my brother, my older brother, and the police being at his house at least once every week. There was domestic violence, there was drugs, there was alcohol, there was all sorts of stuff going on. But this is my older brother. and my relationship with my older brother was such that I'd pat him on the back. It'll be okay. You'll be fine. You're doing fine, Steve. You're fine. It is what I tell. Everything's all right. Or I would commiserate with him about all the nasty things everybody else was doing because that's how I saw things. But one day I saw that it got to that if I didn't talk to my brother actually about what I saw was going on, one of several things, or one of more of several things were going to happen. He was going to be dead because of what was going on in his house. Someone else in his house was going to be dead. His kids were going to be taken away to foster care, and a whole bunch of other things that were simply a math equation about what was playing out, what I was able to see after my dad died. I talked to him about that once, or more than once, but the first time that I talked about him, it was like fireworks. He hung up the phone on me, and really, I talked to him, Steve, if you're not dealing with your kids, I'm going to deal with your kids. If you're not going to parent them to the point where you get the drugs out of the house, I'll make sure that happens. Click. That was it. Phone call over. I didn't hear from him for like a month. First time in my life that I ever stood up against my brother. First time. And told him what I actually saw. No, he did not like that. He did not at all. But he called me back about a month or two later when he calmed down about it and thanked me for it. He still thanks me for that.
Right. But like, there's an emotional connection with you and your brother. You know what I'm saying? That you can kind of get him to see that angle. Now, as an owner, you know what I mean? As a trainer, you're trying to get an employee to see that angle. That's my point, where there's got to be some compassion to see why George can't be brutally honest with himself. Whether it's an excuse or not, doesn't matter.
Now, hold on a second. Hold on a second. You know what I was going through. This is Jesse.
Yeah.
Right?
Jesse.
Yeah. So I got a question for you. Do you think feeling sorry for me would have changed anything? Would I have changed anything if somebody agreed with me there?
Say the question again. Do you think feeling sorry for yourself would have changed if somebody would have agreed with you?
If other people felt sorry for me when I was in my state of mind that I was in, where I was arguing with everything, where I didn't want to do the work, where I thought I was a special case, if people felt sorry for me, what would have happened?
I do feel for a person that feels sorry for you might have been an angle, maybe an opening for you to connect with somebody.
Nah, Ralph, no. I would not have seen it. I wouldn't have changed anything because, Jesse's right. Jesse has a right to feel that way.
I'm wrong. I'm you know what I mean?
Just in my case, if people would have felt sorry for me, I would have continued the same behavior because I would have nothing to push to change.
Right. So what do you think actually caused you to change? What caused you to be brutally honest with yourself to
my
change?
Circumstances with nobody putting up with it. I had to change. I could no longer lie to myself. I could no longer say, oh, I'm not doing that. Oh, I'm not that kind of person. I had to actually look at it. I had to look in the mirror and say, okay, yeah, I'm fat, or whatever the thing is.
Stop a second. Did anybody say that you had to be brutally honest with yourself?
No.
Did anybody push on you to be brutally honest or to even talk about honesty in any way, shape, or form?
Nope, they just pointed out what I was doing.
Oh.
So I'll tell you this. That I heard a good friend say this to me one time. He said, if you and I think it was on this subject actually. He said, if people are pointing out that I'm an asshole, then I can either look that I'm an asshole, where I'm an asshole, choose to change my assholeness, or go with another group of people that think I'm great.
Yeah, like that.
I just think it's like, who tells you you're an asshole is
Nobody.
it's important. Listen,
Nobody,
seriously.
that's the
Nobody.
problem.
Nobody. You're doing the same thing as Jesse. You're not listening. You got. No, listen carefully. You got interlocked with the idea of brutal honesty. Oh no! Brutal honesty! It's bigger than I am! It's orange! It has hair! Oh my god! It has a pussy! Oh no! That's enough to interlock anybody. Okay, I mean, you just that thought, the visual, you're interlocked. Boom, you're looking at an orange pussy. Kitty, 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 kitty. That kind, right? I'm sure. Okay, so anyway, that what happens is you get interlocked with that, and you can't hear anything because you're so interlocked that you're hearing brutal honesty, brutally honest. Oh my God, it's somebody brutal honest with my set with me. Oh my God, I shoot the son of a bitch. I'm sure of it. I don't want to be brutally honest with you, therefore. You can be brutally honest with your own damn self, or you can't. I'm going to sit back and measure that. I don't care whether you're brutally honest or not. But you telling me you're going to do something, I'm going to sit right here and I'm going to look over there at your specific function. I'm going to say, hey, that specific function, why is it that what you say you're doing over here and what you're actually doing be different? I'm just curious because you want me to trust you, right? Well, I'd like to trust you, but what you're saying and what you're doing is different. Now, how am I going to trust you, hon?
Mhm.
I think that's what Ken's trying to say there from the beginning. Sort
Yeah,
of.
that's it. Yeah. How am I going to trust them if the word and the deed don't match? But to get them in alignment, that's a George and a Jesse and an everybody else thing. And or as someone pointed out maybe yesterday, the horse to the water thing. It's like, okay, you can, grown people can do that.
Well, I'm glad. I don't know. It sounded like it clicked for Jesse in the way that was. You know what I mean? Again, I'm learning as this thing is going on too. You know what I mean? Maybe you're right. No excuses. Why make excuses up for somebody?
But I don't have to ask them about that. I don't even have to make up excuses or anything else. I just ask, okay, well, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? I'm good with you doing it. Either I can afford to have you do it here, or I can't. It's one of those things. And so I just ask people that question, and I wait for an answer. If they can't answer me, then I know I can't believe anything they're saying because I'm asking about something they're doing, and they say, "Oh, but I don't understand. It's too difficult for me to understand. I'm too little." And I know they're lying to me, and I know that if they're that little, then I don't want to hire them. They're going to steal from me because they don't know any different, any better than that, really.
Yeah. You may get an answer, or I may get an answer that they're aware they're doing it and they're doing it by design and they're damn happy with doing it that way.
Okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to know, John. I'm done. Thank you. See, that's
Yep.
being brutally honest with me. It has nothing to do with that person, does it? I mean, it really and truly, I'm not making a judgment about that person. I'm saying, I don't, you can do that thing.
Yeah.
It's like with George and Jesse. I don't mind it. Hell, I don't mind that George is cute. He can be as cute as he wants to be. He can go down here in the corner and show me how cute he is. He'll make a lot more money down there. He will at tank office because the tank office people will pay you. Down there in the corner, it will though.
Yeah. So how does brutal honesty, what does it have to do with empathy?
Oh man, how can I feel somebody else's feelings really? I mean, I hear all these chicks, my aura's blue, and I'm a special soul, and I can feel other people's feelings. I feel their pain. Okay, especially like once a month, I feel everybody's pain. Okay, and I'm good with that. Okay, but it's not empathy. Because it's about them. It isn't about the other person.
Yeah.
I don't need to feel the other person's pain. I can fucking observe it.
Mm.
That's devastating enough. Why do I want to go wallow in it with them? I don't. I understand that I can see that pain for them. You want to see a pain? You want to see what empathy looks like? Look at this number, 71,000 plus people dead.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me be brutally honest with everybody about that. Let me be brutally honest with myself. That's not okay with me. I don't care what anybody says. I can't agree that that's okay. 10,000 people over the weekend? No, that's not okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, what does it have to do with empathy function? It allows us to actually express it. By being brutally honest with ourselves, we can actually express empathy function. But we can't do it if we're not.
Yeah. I that's right. I have well, I know a life coach person, local, New Jersey, who prides herself on what she calls brutal honesty.
Yeah. I've heard
Yeah,
that.
she was asking me a couple years ago for a recommendation for a chiropractor, and I sent her over to the chiropractor, and she dished out some brutal honesty to the chiropractor in the form of outrage that he would charge her for his chiropractic services. Her point was, "How dare you? Don't you know who I am?" Thing like that, and the chiropractor called me up after and said, "The hell's up with this? You know, I perform my chiropractic services, and she told me I had no right to charge her. You know, so I gave her a call up and asked her what was up with that, and she was, she said I was just dishing out my brutal honesty. I've always been taught, that I need to be brutally honest. Well, the part that John's talking about the brutal honesty with yourself was missing from that, because the actual communication had very little to do with her being honest with the chiropractor, and everything to do with her righteousness and worldview about who she was and how she should be treated. But without taking a look at that and being honest with herself, there ain't no way in hell she was going to ever be able to have an agreement with that chiropractor, ever. He was having none of that. And that was not empathetic at all in terms of what was going on for him and what he needed. Brutal honesty starts with ourselves.
Why isn't George honest with himself?
Well, we can ask George.
Yeah, George, how come you're not honest with yourself? Are you on? Let's see. I'm allowed to talk. I've got two Georges on tonight. Which one should I choose?
The one that's honest.
I got 50 cents. Here goes. All right, I just freed up one to talk. Let's see what we get. George?
Hello. You picked the honest George.
Yes. All right. So how come you're not honest with yourself? Really? How come? I mean, you called me up today, right, and said that you wanted to teach the class today or something like that. I mean, you literally, I kid everyone who's listening to this not. My phone rang, George. Hey, George, how you doing? Hey, Ken, how come you calling me, George? I'm calling you because I'd like to teach the class tonight. Really? And so you can do that, George, or that was an instance of you not being brutally honest with yourself?
That was definitely an example of me not being brutally honest with myself because, well, let's get a little bit of backstory. How that came about was that I made soup today. I made like a cream, like a potato soup with kielbasa, and it was in a cream, like a cream liquid. And John asked me after I cooked it, did you know how to make that? And I was honest, and I said, no, I've never made like a cream soup like this before. And he said, oh, well, you just do stuff that like you just thought you knew how to do it, and you just went ahead and did it anyway, though. And that was basically the gist of it, was that like I think I can do things that I don't really have the capability of doing because I don't have the experience, knowledge of it.
No, it's the
And so John said, okay, well, you know what? You know all these things. Then why don't you take my place in the class tonight, in the webinar tonight?
It's still the understanding. It's the understanding that you don't have. It's not the rest of it. It's the understanding. Really, I'm not kidding you. If you wanted to solve the problem, try understanding what the problem is. If you don't understand it, that's the problem.
What is he saying to you, George?
It is not the recipe. It's understanding what you're doing with the meat.
Yeah, he's saying that like just like with the soup, and just like understanding what happens at a tank office, or understanding what we're doing here in the business here in Mexico, it's about understanding. That's something that I haven't quite reached. I haven't reached that. I don't understand it yet.
How come though? It doesn't sound like it's a complexity. In fact, I know it's not a complexity issue. I mean, not, it seems more of a, I don't need to or want to understand issue.
If you don't know how you know, how can you understand something?
You can't, but that gets back to the question of how are you going to find out how you know? That doesn't sound like a complexity issue. It sounds like a, hey, check in with people on the outside issue. Yeah.
Check it. What do you mean check in with people on the outside?
Well, how do you know? How do you reach?
Whoa. Are you married, Kaplan?
Yeah.
No wonder your wife takes you to the cleaners every damn time she talks to you. You didn't even see that he fucked you, did you?
No.
Do you think that boy doesn't understand plain English? He's got a psychology degree.
Yeah, he understands.
Okay, so you're going to explain to him a plain English sentence.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Why don't you get down underneath the plain English sentence and find out what he's actually asking about then? I mean, there's not, Ralph wanted to know why he wasn't honest with himself. Well, demonstrate it. Here's where you demonstrate it right here.
Yes. How come you're not honest with yourself, George?
No, it's not that. What was the question? What did George
The question was, how do you that he doesn't know what he
How come
knows?
he's not able? How come he's
know.
not able to be honest with himself?
No, that was Ralph's question. Okay, George's question to you was what? Terry, what was it? I know that you know.
Oh, sorry, I was attending to something else.
Okay. George, ask your question again, please.
I think the question was something like Ken said, it's not a complexity issue of understanding.
Right.
It's that you like, it's more of just a check. Oh, my question was, he said you have to like check with other people, and I resisted that.
Yeah, you didn't answer that question.
No,
What did you say?
What he did is he said, what does that mean? Think about it. What do chicks do when they want a guy to answer something and change the subject?
What does that mean?
Sure they do. They say, oh, what does that mean, Mr. Big Man?
Explain it to me.
Was Mr. George conning you, Kim?
Yeah,
No, tell me it's not true.
I won't tell you it's not true. It is true.
Okay. George,
Yep.
Did you really understand the English language right there? You did, right?
Yeah, I understand the English language.
Okay. Okay. So why did you evade right there rather than being honest and answer the question that Ken asked you, or where he was leading you? What happened there that you diverted?
Well, I think it's that he talked about how you have to check with other people about understanding stuff.
Yes, and that's really your argument here, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah,
pretty
because
large part of the argument.
you have third-party substantiation, because if you have to do that, then you can't run off into your fantasy world, right?
Right.
Okay, George, one more time around. I don't mind that you live in your fantasy world. I don't mind that you protect it, but you can't do that and live in a tank office. Really, you can't. Because while you're off in the fantasy world, people are programming you. What do you think is happening that you're constantly in a state of turmoil, because you're not resolving these issues for yourself? You're not being, what Ralph is asking, not being honest with yourself. Okay, cool. I don't mind. How about you? Do you mind that you're not honest with yourself here? Ralph wants to know. Ralph's
Yeah.
I'm being brutally honest with you, and I'm not being fair with you, and so forth. So come on, bud, cough it up here. Am I being fair with you or not?
No, you're being fair.
No, don't give me a song and dance. Explain it. Jesse came on and explained it. You do the same thing. Come on.
Okay.
I know you're wrestling with this, but come on, don't get lost there. Come on.
Okay. So it's that, like, the thing is John just with the soup, he just asks me, did you know how to make that? And what he's really asking is if I have the three parts of knowing. Do I have an authoritative source, or have I had the soup before? Have I had the experience of cooking it or eating it? And then have I had the third party substantiation of someone else confirming for me, oh yeah, that's what the soup is supposed to taste like. That's potato and kielbasa soup. So, but I didn't do those things. I just basically made a soup that I was imagining. Like, I thought it up in my mind and I said, this is how it's going to taste like. And so I didn't get anyone else's opinion on what this soup is going to be.
Why?
And so John's pointing at he's pointing at something that I do over and over again in my life. I don't have arguments about that. Like, I
Why?
have memories from, go ahead. What was that?
Why? Why did you?
No, that's the wrong question. Then what are you arguing about?
I don't have
arguing
arguments.
about that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then what are you arguing about? Whatever that is.
Mhm.
Okay, we don't care about what that is because he's not arguing about that. What we don't know is what he is arguing about.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious how you come to an understanding of at least the framework of the problem, and then yet proceed to do the same thing. It's almost like by definition, like I figured out what I do, and I'm going to do it anyway. So that sort of begs the question of how come. And the answer could be because it works for me, but I don't know that. I've never heard him say that. It doesn't sound like it works particularly well.
So George, it's okay. Yeah, I'm not telling you to change anything, or I am.
No, you're not telling me to change anything.
What I'm asking you to do is to understand something. Now, is that too heavy a burden?
No.
Am I asking you to understand it the way I understand it, or am I asking you to understand it for yourself?
For myself, yeah.
And so that's too heavy a burden.
No, it's not too heavy a burden.
Oh, really? I'm bummed about that now.
Hmm.
It isn't. But I'm not being fair, right? No, you can be honest here. You know, I'm not going to yell at you about whether I'm fair or not. You don't think I know that you don't think I'm fair. It's okay. You can tell them.
Go ahead, George.
I mean, well, it's like on the one hand, it's soup. It's just soup. On the other hand, yeah, this is a major
Say what?
problem I run into.
What's the part? The first part on the first hand.
I said it's just soup.
What are you complaining about, big guy?
It's just soup. Oh, I see. Are you paying for that soup? Are you eating the soup? Are you the one that are you the one that does the crazy in the soup?
No, it's for other people.
But is that the point though? That just soup is that it's much ado about something small? Is that the point there? On the one hand, it's just soup means what? It's much ado about just soup.
Yeah, it's like a mountain out of a molehill.
Oh, I wonder if that just soup thing is in everything. I mean, you can distinguish between it being just soup and it being just a float tank office or just a client.
Yeah, George, if you lie about soup, what won't you lie about?
At least I don't think we'd go so far as to say the kid lied about the soup because he didn't. The soup had a good taste. Okay, it was weak because he only thought about it in terms of celery, onions, and a few potatoes and three relatively old sausages that he fried up first.
Oh,
Okay, now it did have a good flavor. Don't misunderstand, but it was really thin. You know,
But this has nothing to do with the soup. I mean,
it doesn't. It's not about the soup.
it's
Right?
not about the soup, right? It's not. I don't even want you to make it about. It's about doing things without finding out.
exactly.
No, well, it's actually not finding out. It's about understanding. Okay.
Yeah.
Just go to that part. You know,
Yep.
if he understands it for him, I'm good. You know, this is the problem I'm having is that he doesn't have a way apparently in himself where he can identify whatever it is that he's doing so that he understands it himself. He said he can't say, I started here, I built this up from here to there, and I can add to it over here and over here and over here pretty easily. Over here, I don't understand it, so we'll have to add to it. But I'm all ears. I'm paying attention. That's an understanding that craftsmen of all variety have. Whether it's a craftsman in a kitchen or a craftsman in a law office or a craftsman at a typewriter.
Yeah, that's true.
So now I'm curious whether George can even describe the difference from what you're saying to how he thinks about understanding. George, can you do that?
Yeah, how I currently think of understanding.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. John just sort of said understanding has all these parts, and you seem to think it's a much smaller group. So I'm not sure you hear John saying the words, but I'm not sure you can say yourself what that difference is.
Mm.
And George, again, that has to be a difference for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. See, that's where you and I get crossways here. Is that I'm looking for your definition of how you understand whatever it is you're doing. I can't find a place to start with you. Cute doesn't do it for me. I know that you got that one down. I know that bitchy doesn't do it for me. I know that mom and you do that one okay and everything. I got it. I mean, I'm not mad about that, or mind you, I'm not even offended by it, but it just doesn't do it for me. Okay. I don't think that's a real place. I need to see something real from you somewhere here. And if I see that, then I know, you know, you show me where that real is. You know, I've been patient. I'm still waiting. I'm still looking. Now, how about you showing it to me or show it to anybody? Tell them to tell me about where to go look for it, because I don't know how to go find it now. I'm not telling you to change anything. I'm not telling you that you're not okay. I'm just saying, check it out, dude. I don't know where to start with you. I think you have to be a human being, and human beings are not cute. Barbie dolls are. I mean, there are some cute human beings that are cute as they can be. I'm here to tell you. But even those ones that are really cute and everything, they don't have a brain. If they can't think for themselves. Really, you're interested in that? I'm not.
Yeah. Cute's a shortcut. It's like I can ignore all the rest of that, because look at this. Look how I twirl.
My pie looks really, really, really boss, man. I'll date myself. How's that? But it tastes like crap. It's that kind of thing. My soup was made with all the right stuff, and I did all the right steps, and I did the right recipe. But it's weak. It's watery. Okay, what did I do? What did I do wrong? Nothing. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't understand what it was you were trying to do. That's all. If you'd understood what you were doing, you would have put more steps in it. You didn't understand. You tried to get done quickly. You were looking for cute, not for substance. Now, do you want to do that? Is that how you want to live life?
No.
Well, then you have to exchange some things here somewhere if you're going to live a different life. You tell me. Jesse sat his butt down and he rewrote that program. I watched him sit down and write it from goals to an impulse in an hour and a half. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. If I only knew what it was that you were trying to accomplish, you could do the same thing. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have anything against that. Do you know what you're trying to accomplish?
Not exactly.
Okay, fair enough.
Hey, John, you're this is a demonstration, I'd say, of applying brutal honesty to oneself,
To me.
to you, to be able to talk to George about what it is that George is doing, what he wants to do, what his specific function is.
Yes.
Well, and then you're having to ask yourself, what are you looking at? And then you're asking George about that.
Because when I look over there at that structure, George, and I say, okay, George, you're at one with yourself. You're saying that you're a psychologist. You're gay. You've got this education. You're working in a tank office. Okay, there's a solid thread through that. Okay, cool. But what does cute have to do with that? And why can't you be something other than cute? I'm not mad at him about it. But it's a strange combination, and so I have to ask about it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't need to be judgmental.
No, and you wouldn't be if you were brutally honest about yourself and what you're doing, unless
I'm not.
unless that's what you wanted to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've also been asking him about that. Where is the difference between what he says he wants to accomplish and what he actually is, and saying, okay, why is that there? So that.
Okay. Now, here's the other thing that you can't quite see yet, because it's going to be another before we get to it, I guess, is that from the intuition function, which is more objective and examines a subjective function of called the natural mind function. I look at that and I say, okay, George, what is it you are expressing here? And he says, I'm expressing cute. That's not in the natural mind function. You can't kill a deer with cute.
Yeah.
You can't catch a fish with cute. You cannot grow corn with cute. Pumpkins, well, so-so, but cute doesn't really go very far. I got to tell you. And it just really depends on how cute the pumpkin is, if you're going to grow it or not. That's another story. I better leave that alone. Right, pumpkin? Anyway, anyway, the thing that I need you to look at right just for a second, Carrie, is this: is that what George is doing in the natural mind function exists. There's something there, and it's strong and it does something. But because he is so locked into or interlocked with this being or having to be bitchy or whatever those things are, then he can't really express that. George, do you know what those things are?
No, I couldn't really say what those things are.
Okay. Can you find out? I mean, what's going to be required for you to resolve these issues that I'm bringing up for you here? Because I've been bringing them up for 30 days or so, 40 days or so now. I mean, even Christ got over it after 40 days, dude.
Well, I think I have to be brutally honest with myself to well,
Just be brutally honest with yourself. Just be honest with yourself. Just start there. Just say, okay, before I get to be brutally honest, how about if I'm just honest? George Lopez has this shtick that he does about they call it and says he's over to see her, but not right now. He's going to go over to see her right now, but not right now. Okay, and that's you. Let's just be honest. Even let's be honestly honest. Okay, and let's think about it like that for a second here. So, does it really serve you for all this cuteness thing? I mean, I'm not saying there's not a time and a place for it, or it's not something that you may or may not express. I'm just saying, is that really a life goal?
no, it doesn't really serve anything.
Okay, then must it be in everything that you do?
No, definitely not.
If you didn't have that there, what would you put in its place? I mean, it's pretty important to you. I'm not trying to take it away. I'm just, what would you do?
Well, maybe put understanding like a sort of mature understanding about things and responding to things with this maturity as opposed to
Let's stop for a second right there. What does understanding mean for you? Carrie asked you that, right?
mm-hmm.
So what does that mean?
It means like what's actually going on, what are the processes, what are the like it's hard to explain, but it's like you actually know, say with someone or with a recipe or with a business, what are all the factors that
George, let's make it less complicated and easier to understand. Would that be all right?
that would be better? Yeah.
Let's think about it in terms of energy or vibration. Can we do that?
Yeah, that'd be simpler.
Okay. So let's talk about a soup. Can you hear my soup?
Yes.
There's another ingredient in my soup. Now I have 3 ingredients in my soup. If I'm careful, I can add to my soup a little bit if I wanted to, as long as I know what it is I'm making. Now I'm going to make a different soup. I have to understand the relationships between it's not just a series of notes. It's not a matter of that's a series of notes, but it doesn't say anything. Do I look cute though if I hold my guitar and I hit notes?
No, you don't look cute if you just hit notes on the guitar.
Right.
Well,
You have to actually play something, right?
right.
Okay. The same thing is true for anything else that anybody does, dude. And to do that, you have to be honest with yourself about where the hell you are with the guitar picking. Are you just holding it to be cute, or you really want to play the damn thing?
Well, yeah, I want to play the damn thing.
Well, then you're going to have to understand all of the parts. And you know how you know, really. That's, whenever you get around to that, send me a memo and we'll get started. How's that?
That sounds good.
Great. Let me know when you're ready to get started, okay?
Okay.
All right. Well, okay. Anything else anybody want to add? I think we'll talk about honesty again tomorrow. How's that sound?
Yeah, that hour flew by. Funny. Brutal honesty.
Well, we'll see you then tomorrow.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night, all.